In this video, we see how OPC Expert can send data to Microsoft SQL Server and get data from Microsoft SQL Server back into OPC. So we can actually use Microsoft SQL Server to write back to OPC data. So in this case, I will take two items from an OPC UA server. So you can see here, this item here doesn't change. And what you will also see is that it's a type string. I will also connect to a DA server. I'll take two more items. Take this one, I'll take this one. So two more items from OPC DA. So I've got now OPC UA and OPC DA. We're going to store these in Microsoft SQL Server. And I should remind you that this can also be done with MQTT or other databases like SQLite, Azure, Amazon, and so on. Right now, there are no databases because we're starting off clean. So there we go. I've got this over here. There is OPC Expert. I'll select these items, right-click, archive, and create new archive. One thing I should point out is just make sure you have this latest version you see right here. So here's the version. Make sure you have this latest version. I'm going to select Microsoft SQL Server, but as you can see, you can choose a whole bunch of other destinations. I will say next. Here, this is all local, so I can say this is on SQLDB. That's the name of my computer here. You can see this computer is SQLDB. It automatically chooses SQL Express, and it's going to go into the history database by default. I would use the defaults whenever possible. At least when you're just starting out, don't play around too much. Just choose the defaults. Let's just make sure your communication is working. So next thing, when you're making a database connection, make sure you hit test connection. When you hit test connection, it will make sure that you are actually able to connect, and in this case successfully connected to the SQL Server instance. Great. So we know we're okay. You can choose your authentication. In this case, I'm using Windows authentication, but of course you can use SQL authentication, and you can choose your timestamps and so on, but that's something to play around with later on. So here we go. I'll click OK. And you would have seen this in other videos that we're able to archive data. So here I will start. Now remember, our database name was history. So right now when I go to Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio and I'll refresh, there we go, there's history. And what you can see are the tables. So all of these are made automatically by OPC Expert. Again, it's in the history database. And we have real-time data right here. Select top 1,000 rows. So we should be able to see here, just make it a bit bigger. Here are our four items, and when I refresh, we can see that this is updating. Execute, execute. Right, so you can see that flow and random change, but memory and custom do not. Right, just like you see over here. All right, now for those of you interested, all of this is of course also in historical data. So if we select the top 1,000 rows, there we go. And if I order by timestamp descending, there we go. So you can see when I click execute, we have 150 rows now. If I execute again, we have 155. And you can see that these timestamp change, and we keep seeing new data. So all of this is really going into the history table. Okay, But we'll go back to the items table. This is the real-time table. It's there for your convenience. So you can just get the real-time data directly from this items table. And again, you notice that in here, these two are not changing because they're not changing in the OPC server. However, if we then go and in here, as you notice, of course, we can't make a change. So I will go to items, and this time instead of view select top 1000 rows, I will edit the top 200 rows. We have to edit. There we go. So here you can see string 0. So what I will do, and I'll keep in mind what you have to do here. Okay, there we go. I'll take string 0 and I will say OPC is great. And I'll hit enter. There we go. So once I've hit that, right, it doesn't work. And why? Because I forgot the most important thing, which is this point right here. I want to make it bi-directional. So it's good that you don't see any changes, because if I make a change, you don't see it here. And of course, you don't see it here either. So what I forgot to do was to right click, and set it to bi-directional. Bi-directional means that it's going from OPC to, okay, well, there we go. And now I'll make it, oh, there we go. It already changed. Don't need this column, we need this one. OPC is great. I will go here. I hit Control R to refresh. Control R refreshes this list. You can't hit F9. You can't hit execute. You got to hit Control R. And I'll say I was here. Enter. And now look at this. I was here. And you can see that it's also in the OPC server. There it is. I was here. If I go back to the archive, well, I can see it here. I will, in this case, you can see the direction. It's got a bi-directional arrow. In this case, I will say, I'll take memory. So this is for a DA server. So this time I'll remember, right click, bi-directional. Now it's set to bi-directional. And now I will say 1, 2, 3, enter. And there it is. It says 1, 2, 3. And if I go to my real-time data, sure enough, it is 1, 2, 3. So we can actually see that this is bi-directional. We're reading from OPC, and we are and to SQL, and going from SQL back to OPC. In this case, I'm going to write, and I'll go 4, 5, 6, write. Now, how come I don't see the change here? Well, you can see 4, 5, 6 here in real time. I did write it, and it is actually in the archive, but I don't see it here because I need to refresh. So I hit Control R, and here we go, 4, 5, 6. And that's all there is to it. Just remember, you need to make sure these points are bi-directional. So I can undo it by checking this. So now it's no longer bi-directional. Now that it's no longer bi-directional, if I go 1, 2, 3, enter, this does not change. This will not change because it's only going from OPC to SQL. One direction. This guy here is still bi-directional. And sure enough, it works. And let's see here. I should be able to see it over here. There it goes. It works. And that's all we have to it. And again, just make sure you have this latest version. Of course, older versions will work, but this is the latest version as of today. Good luck, everybody.